we're here to tell you something.
You can become extraordinary.
We've filmed some of the most inspirational people on the planet to understand what it really takes to succeed. In Becoming Extraordinary, we'll explore the skills, knowledge, attitudes, and relationships to help you to realize your potential.
Because greatness isn't born, it's learned. So, who can you become?
In this episode, we'll meet the Golden Girl, a former British soldier who became a double Olympic gold medalist. And the Spaceman, a former test pilot and the UK's first European Space Agency astronaut.
Hey there, and welcome to Becoming Extraordinary, the series in which we're going to be looking into the mindset and stories of some of the most inspirational people out there, to see if we can see any patterns and connect the dots to help you achieve incredible things.
Yes, I'm so excited for that. First, we're going to be hearing from Olympic gold medalist Kelly Holmes, and as well as that, we're also going to hear from Tim Peake, who was the first British ESA astronaut who visited the International Space Station.
Before we launch into Tim's story, why don't we look at Kelly's story, who went from the army to being the UK's Golden Girl.
And did you know she started training for athletics at only 12 years old?
Wow, well, I know at 18, she turned away from athletics to pursue her career in the army.
She became the British Army judo champion and won the 800 metres, the 3,000 metres and a relay race in a single day at an army athletics event.
In 1992, even though she was in the army at the time, she saw her longtime rival, Lisa York, win the heats in the 1992 Olympics. She was like, I've got to go back. And she went back into athletics.
Love that for you, Kelly. She also failed to win a medal at the 1996 Olympics.
That's a shame, but did she stop there?
I don't think she did.
No, I don't think she did, because in 2004, they were actually her last because she won the gold medal for 800 and 1,500 meters.
She retired from athletics in 2005 and has since been made an honorary colonel with the Royal Armoured Corps Training Regiment.
And for all of her achievements, she was appointed Dame Commander for the Order of the British Empire.
Wow. Wow, that is awesome.
You want to watch more about her?
I would love to.
Roll the tape, please.
I'm just this girl from Kent that grew up in a council estate that just loved running. And that feeling of inspiring people and knowing that your journey, no matter how tough it was, has actually made a difference to, again, so many other people. It's a weird position to ever be in. Growing up was kind of an interesting time for me because I grew up in Kent at that time with my mother, who's white, and my father, my stepdad, actually, who was white. And I went to a primary school that was all white children, and that's all I know. I went to school purely for my friends because I wasn't academic at all. So I literally sat in the classroom just wishing the time away. But I could do sport, and so sport gave me the ability to show who I was, and that's the only time I ever felt really good about myself.
Wow. Did you enjoy school? Were you good at school?
Really, really enjoyed math. I really enjoyed all the classes I took. I was a huge academic, didn't do any sport.
I feel like I was good at school. I was quite academic. I liked sports, a bit like Kelly. But I think for me, my favorite subject was definitely performing arts.
Really?
Yeah, like being expressive, being free, being fun. But what I liked about her story is that she found something that she could cling to, and that was sports for her.
And the fact that she seemed so driven and she knew so early on is just really great to hear. When you were a kid, did you feel like you knew what you wanted to do for a living?
I was genuinely confused. I was like, yeah, Mum, I'm gonna be a doctor.
A doctor?
Then the next day I was like, you know what, dentistry.
You were like,
actually,
yeah.
I'm gonna be an English teacher. I'm gonna merge it with musical theatre. And she's like, you need to just maybe think about your life.
I wanted to be an astronaut at one point.
Oh, wow.
Every American boy wants to be an astronaut, I feel like. That's the thing. I wanted to do video game music.
Okay.
I wanted to be a math teacher for the longest time, design video games. Having that eventual change of, motivation for me helped me know what I wanted to do. It was similar to how Kelly seemed to completely be driven. At least she knew early on everything she wanted to do. It's crazy inspirational to know that.
From from the age of 14, I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be Olympic champion and I wanted to be in the army as a physical training instructor. And I feel quite lucky that at that age that I've had such a strong feeling inside me about what I wanted to be. I tried to go in the army when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. I got my mum to take me to the army recruitment office and I was always too young. But when I was 17, they said I could take the test. And I wanted to be a physical training instructor, but the course was full. And I decided I'd become a heavy goods vehicle driver if it got me in the army, so that's what I did. For me, I was a soldier first, but the athletics, you know, I just believed I still had this, I don't know, this ability to be good. I went to my first World Championships when I was 23 and got into the semi-finals. The following year, I won the Commonwealth Games in Victoria, Canada, and European silver medal in Gothenburg, and it just sort of started to get better and better. You know, you used to have to remember I was still a full-time soldier and I was an international athlete, so actually juggling those two things became quite tough. But also, what made me tough was that I was a very strong, young female. And my dream was still to be Olympic 1500-metre champion. So I ended up leaving the army at the end of '97, and then I went on the next mission for the Olympic title.
Wow. Do you know what I love about her? Is she's like, I know what I want to do, I'm going to do it.
And she keeps going for it even if her original method didn't work multiple times in a row. Also, how tough do you have to want to be a physical trainer in the army? You know, and the only reason she didn't get in was because they were full. So she'd be like, I still want to do this, so I'm going to find my way in.
No props to her.
But she did get rejected many times. Is there any time you've been rejected? Don't lie.
Do you know what I have been rejected? When I first applied for university, initially I was going to do biomedical sciences.
Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't get my first choice uni. I got my second choice and that really upset me. So I was like, you know what, let me have a year out and let me reapply. But then when I look back, I'm really grateful that it didn't end up how I thought it would end up. What about you? Have you been rejected before?
I feel like I've been rejected multiple times throughout my life in many different things, but I feel like very similar to what Kelly has done, where even if I can't go the way I wanted to, I'll try and find a different method of achieving what I want, really.
You make things happen and you make things work. That's what I'm hearing from you.
I try.
Yeah, and your dream path can change. Did you ever have to like overcome self-doubt?
Oh my God, that's like a constant thing. I definitely suffer from imposter syndrome very heavily, where no matter how much other people might say, oh, this is really good, what you've done, blah, 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 I'll almost view it as they're lying to me. They're saying nice things to make me feel better because they feel bad for me.
I had been through so many different emotions of highs, lows. I remember getting ready for the World Championships in Paris in 2003. Well, basically I had the biggest breakdown of my life. I just was in a holding camp. I looked in the mirror, hated my body, everything about myself, everything that I believed in, and I wanted the hole to appear and jump in, and I didn't want to see the next day. Because at that time, you didn't talk about emotions. Mental health awareness was nothing. I didn't even know about what breakdown was, or depression, or being a self-harmer involved. But I was still getting ready for World Champs, you know, and that's what actually kept me probably in one piece and to not jump in a hole. Within a couple of weeks of being at the worst place in my life, I ended up winning a silver medal at the World Championships and stand on the rostrum, and all I could think is no one has any idea what I'm going through, yet look, I've got a silver medal. And for me, I feel so lucky that even though I had such a bad time in general, that I had a strong soul and belief in myself, because I think that's a big part of living and achieving. The belief in myself and those dreams was so real that I thought I can, you know, do this. Winning the 1500 metres in Athens was literally a 20-year dream come true. When I crossed, it literally felt like this weight that I'd had in my head, body, mind all this time had just lifted off. And suddenly I was just like, oh my God, I'd done it. It was just, I want to cry now. For me, it's about recognising your own skills believing in yourself, finding something you feel passionate about, because then you're likely to keep going, and then just using those as drivers. But mainly to realise that life is always going to have a brick wall, you know, and the ones that give up will never ever succeed, and the ones that keep going might just break through it.
Oh, wow. I feel quite emotional watching that because you never know someone's hardships until they verbalize it. And obviously we've all seen her, we see her as a success. She's won so many amazing things, but we never hear about the things that she struggled with behind closed doors.
Yeah, especially because back when she was doing that, it was even more of a taboo to talk about mental health at all. So for someone like Kelly, who's like winning all these Olympic tournaments, and yet she's still like, I didn't like my body. That just kind of blows me away and really puts into perspective, like no matter how you see someone, there's a big chance they could be going through something you don't know about.
But one thing I would definitely say that I've learned from Kelly is find something you love, don't give up, and keep your passion.
Yeah, no matter what, the one thing I like doing, I will make sure I do that more than anything else, just because it's, you know, it brings me a sense of happiness.
I love that. And comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh my God.
Don't compare yourself.
Absolutely not.
I can only be Moxie, you can only be Evan.
Wow, really, really great story we got to hear from Kelly there. However, I think it's about time we learn about someone else that got their start in the Army, Tim Peake. So right off the top, in 1992, Tim Peake actually graduated from the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst.
He was also awarded his Army Flying Wings in 1994. He flew on military operations in the former Republic of Yugoslavia and Afghanistan.
And then May 2009, even though he was up against 8,000 other applicants, Tim Peake was selected as the ESA astronaut to go to the International Space Station.
In 2013, Tim spent 3 years conducting further training and working as a communicator with the International Space Station prior to his long-duration mission. Tim was the first British ESA astronaut to visit the International Space Station, launching on a Soyuz rocket on the 15th of December, 2015.
What is a Soyuz rocket?
It is a beautiful rocket.
Ah, that's nice. That's what I was thinking. But did you know that he's also run the London Marathon, but from space, on the treadmill in the International Space Station?
Only he can say that.
That's a flex.
That's really
Absolute flex. And for all of his amazing achievements for his 6 months in the International Space Station, with all the scientific studies, he was awarded one of the high honors by the Queen herself in 2016.
What a guy, I love that. Should we watch the video?
I think that's a good idea.
I was a very normal school kid. I enjoyed school. I wasn't particularly academically brilliant. I was very average. I was in the Army Cadets at school, but we had an Air Force section. So every weekend when the Air Force section went flying, I would change from green uniform into blue uniform, go along with them on the bus and jump in the aircraft. First time I sat in a cockpit of an aircraft, I never looked back. I knew that was something that I wanted to do. It was an absolute driving passion. So I applied to be an Army Air Corps pilot. To be an Army pilot at the time, I needed 3 A-levels, get a place at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. That was actually a tougher hurdle to negotiate than you might think. I managed to get a C, D, and an E at A-level in maths, physics, and chemistry, which I think is actually not a bad message to send. I mean, you know, the fact that you can still go on and achieve a degree later in life, which I did. I was in my 30s when I gained a degree in flight dynamics. But it's more than just the academics, of course, getting into Sandhurst. You have to go to the selection process and then spend a year at the academy, which is a tough year. So I just took everything one step at a time. I loved flying aircraft. I loved understanding what made them work. I loved trying to make them better. And that led to becoming a test pilot. It was all about being in the cockpit. It was being at the sharp edge, pushing boundaries. And then as a test pilot, we work a lot more closely with industry, and the space industry, the aviation industry are so closely linked that it really began to open my eyes to the possibility of becoming an astronaut.
Wow. The first time he sat in a cockpit, he knew that's what he wanted to do. What a revelation moment.
He started realizing it wasn't just that he wanted to fly, he almost wanted to make things better flying. So I guess that really started him on a path to becoming an astronaut.
Yeah, and it really opened his mind, didn't it? failure doesn't mean that your dreams are over. Just look at Tim.
He did pretty badly on his A-levels, but look at him now. I mean, he's definitely accomplished his dreams one little bit at a time.
That's exactly what I liked about what he said. He took things one step at a time. And I think sometimes when you have big dreams or big plans, it can be too big. But when you break it down, exactly, you see that these small things are actually attainable.
Yeah, because not every subject is for every person. So like you might find that you're not exceptional at some of the like STEM subjects, but then you're really passionate about presenting or about arts. Yeah. And you might not even know that, like Tim, until you're later in your years, and then you go back and learn.
Enjoy learning and take it one step at a time.
The astronaut selection process, it's a year long. It is a very demanding year, very tough year, but actually if you just break it down one step at a time, it doesn't have to be. Having had the military experience, I know that the one thing you can't do with this is to try and pretend you're somebody you aren't. So go along, relax, enjoy it. I knew I'd had lots of experience that the military had given me, and that probably stood me in good stead. When I went for the round of hard skills, the majority of the people had PhDs, very, very bright individuals, lots of scientists, lots of engineers. I felt completely out of my depth. You know, I got a degree at 30, I scraped through some A-levels when I was at school, and I've been flying helicopters for 17 years. How do I compete with these people? But in the same way, you've got to look beyond that and say, well, hang on a second, yes, they're bringing a lot to the party, but you also have to draw on your own character and your own strengths and think, well, you know, again, this is something I believe in and I'm going to give it my best shot, but I'm not afraid of giving it a go and I'm not afraid of failing it. I was just treating this as an incredible experience, an opportunity to, you know, try and go for something that was an absolute, you know, dream job.
Would you have guessed Tim Peake was not an academic at all?
I would have had no idea.
Because, you know, like, astronauts usually have to be, like, top of their class, like, top form, but he just wanted it so bad. He was like, I'm going to retrain, I'm going to take tests when I'm 30, and like he said, it's such a small probability, but because he kept trying, like, well, why not?
That's the thing, there's so much power when you keep knocking on doors.
Yeah.
My story is not going to be the same as your story in terms of success, but you can still be successful. And I think it's never too late to work it out.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't a set timeline, there isn't a set deadline. Just enjoy your own personal journey.
Being assigned to a mission to the space station is the most euphoric moment of my life. So when I received that phone call that said, Tim, you've been given a mission, and it's a long duration, 6 months. It was the culmination of all my hopes and dreams. You make lots of sacrifices to be an astronaut, but of course you do that knowing that you have the opportunity to have one of the most privileged experiences that there are. When you actually get out there yourself, it's a mixture of emotions because it's absolutely phenomenal to see the universe from just a thin visor and to be able to turn around in any direction and just to be look one direction the Earth, the next direction the Milky Way. I think every astronaut looks at things differently when they come back. It changes your perspective. You get to see the Earth in its natural place in the solar system. Here on Earth, we don't appreciate the scale of the universe. So when you go into space and you then look back at this little blue jewel beneath you and you think, wow, that's the only place I know where we can survive. So it becomes very precious to you. I think if ever you're told that you can't do something, you need to challenge it and think, well, why? School children have told me, oh, my teacher said I'd never be an astronaut. So what was that based on? Well, just statistics. Well, that's not a valid reason. You might be able to say, there's a very low probability of me becoming an astronaut, but that's not a reason to not have a go. There are so many different routes to perhaps getting where you want to be. A NASA astronaut colleague of mine wanted to be an astronaut desperately, thought, well, the way is to become a US Air Force pilot. That route didn't work out, and he was devastated. Retrained as a doctor, and actually ended up flying to the space station as a medical doctor. So he got there, but you know, it was a different route to the one that he originally thought he was going to take. So I've never forgotten, my chemistry teacher at school said, life is like a dustbin. You get out what you put in. Nothing is going to just roll in front of you and present itself. You have to work hard, and then you will create your own luck.
It's interesting how many sacrifices people make for their career, for their vision, for their goal. And it's amazing to hear his story.
What must have been going through his head when he gets strapped into that rocket and he's going to be leaving his entire family, his wife and 2 kids alone, when he goes out into space? Like, that is such a huge decision.
That's really hard. And it's not a thing where you're in Barbados or in Spain where you can quickly get a flight back. You're literally posted for 6 months. So I don't know what kind of emotional prep you'd have to do for something like that.
To be up there, like Tim said, and like be able to see the Earth, the only place that we have as humans that we can live on, it definitely makes you appreciate everything more.
Yeah, I think it would actually show you what really matters and puts a lot of things into perspective.
We're all just one little speck on the Earth trying to make our name, you know? And I think it was really inspirational what he'd said about like life is like a dustbin, you get what you put in. Yes, you could say Tim Peake is incredibly lucky, but it wasn't like the luck just came to him. Because he kept opening new doors and kept going, let me try, let me use this opportunity, he became the name we know, who's an incredibly inspiring individual.
And I think as well, the desire to be an astronaut, there are so many teachers or people that will say, you'll never be that. Why do you want to be that? But I think it's so important to question, why not? And if you keep trying, you'll get there. But if you don't try, you never know.
Because it's improbable, that doesn't mean that it's not likely at all.
Exactly.
If you still fight for it, you can be that percent that becomes one if you want it enough.
You know, the truth is not everybody is going to be an astronaut, but if you don't try, you're not going to get there. So I would take away from this, keep trying. And if you get there, well done. And if you don't, that's also okay.
Especially because if you don't get there, you're probably going to be similar to our other story. She wanted to be in the Army and then she ended up being in the Olympics and then she wanted to do athletics. Like, there's always something you can learn from your journey. And if you try, even if you don't succeed in that specific thing, you're going to succeed in many other ways. We hope these 2 stories have inspired you as much as they've inspired us. To know that everybody has the potential to do extraordinary things.
Exactly. And just like Tim and Kelly, everyone has something inside of them that ignites them. And I think that's the secret to success.